seeing a lot of clients reach out to us and say, hey, we're getting a lot of cases and we're diving into it. And it's people that were spending money on Facebook ads that are just getting more than they used to because there's more people on Facebook. The dollar per impression is down as well. So, right, I mean, you're getting thousands of more impressions that, so it's costing less to get those impressions. So those are kind of like big trends we're seeing in actual data that we had.
So are you thinking that, I mean, impressions are great, but what we all know is that conversions really matter. So how is the engagement? Are people just totally distracted and bouncing around from thing to thing and just consuming and not actually acting? Or are you finding that people are taking the next steps to get in touch with the firm and to schedule a consultation if one is available now?
Yeah, so I will say, I mean, that unfortunately that the data is not awesome for everybody at all. So we have traffic to websites in certain categories is up, but no matter whether your traffic is up or down, leads across the board are just down a little bit. So yeah, I think people are visiting stuff, checking out the resources, utilizing all the stuff we're telling people to do, but aren't converting as high as they used to. And we're still seeing 7 to 10% conversion rates on some of our best client sites. I mean, that's, we like to try to be around the 10% numbers. Yeah, so I like to try to get toward a 10% number. Anything, once you kind of get over that, then I worry that we're not sending enough traffic, right? So it's kind of, but if you're below 5% conversion rate on your website, there's some problems probably on your website.
And can you define a conversion here in this context?
Yep. So somebody who comes and visits your website that then takes the action that you want them to, and for most law firms that we work with, that action is scheduling a consultation, right? So, and that usually comes in the form of a phone call, a chat, or just filling out a form online. All three of those can be tracked pretty well. Speaking, Maddie, I mean, you guys do that all the time, right? So you're taking in intake via chat, right? So that, so that we see that all the time. So that's a conversion in our minds. It's like somebody who is the closest thing to becoming a client, and now it's all on the law firm, right? From the marketer to,
right, exactly.
It's kind of like in a traditional thing, it'd be from marketing to sales, right? So that's a conversion, and we want to see 7 to 10% of the people coming to your overall website. Some pages will be higher conversion, that's different, but overall the website, we want to see about 7 to 10% is a really good number to get to. And like I said, once we start seeing it cross above 10%, I start worrying that, we can send more traffic to this website now. We're focusing on the wrong things, right?
Right. Okay. So that brings up a really good question. When you are driving to a website, what Facebook is building now more than ever, and we're seeing this actually on Google's side too, where like Google added into their ads immediate sort of form fill, and Facebook has added in form fills that pre-populate even with your Facebook information, like your name and email. And there's more activity that's happening within Facebook. Are you seeing, or are you using that with clients? Are those effective to capture that right there? Are there any downsides to doing that?
So no, I mean, people want to stay in Facebook, and I think Facebook keeps giving options. And by the way, they've brought that out and pulled it back, and brought it out and pulled it back. So that, because every time there's like a big privacy concern, Facebook pulls all that stuff away, and then they slowly bring it back out because advertisers want it. But it works. I mean, people don't want to leave the platform they're in, especially if you're on a mobile device, which significant amount of people are on whether they're on their iPad or on their phone, cruising through Facebook. To leave to go to another website and fill something in is like, it's almost like invasive. It's like, wait, you took me out of my stream of stuff, or the stuff I was looking at. So we recommend using those. And by the way, you can put call tracking numbers in your Facebook page, so to track that. Facebook forms, you can actually take the extra effort and embed something like a website form into what is like the Facebook forms. And then you're tracking it as well. So you get the tracking as well. That's kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, but yeah.
I think we should get into the weeds. I think that like there's so many conversations, anyone can have some cookie cutter conversation. Like the whole point of bringing you in, Mark, is to get into the weeds so that people can actually do things right now. I mean, you guys can give me feedback in the chat if you want us to just talk in generalities. But like I think what's really interesting is what's going on with grants, what's going on with like conversion within Facebook, because yeah, I agree with you. The more friction you create, the lower the conversion rate is going to be just by nature.
Yeah, and Google's the same way. You should be like your Google My Business page. You should be taking advantage of they're slowly rolling it out, but in some cities, in some practice areas, you can actually have people schedule a consultation right from your Google My Business. You should be taking advantage of that. You should be putting a tracking number in your if you're using tracking numbers. When I say tracking numbers, something using a tool like CallRail or something. We use CallRail internally for all our clients, but there's other tools out there. I just mentioned that one because we use it, not because I'm saying it's the best.
Yeah, CallRail is great because they also do form tracking.
And they track back to, integrate the analytics really well. We like doing Google Analytics. We use it for form tracking as well to kind of double check things. Yeah, that's why we like it. It also, if you do ads, Google ads, you can track at a keyword level, which is really hard to do. So they're pretty good.
So I think go ahead, Mark.
I say so, but have a call tracking number in your Google My Business as well. You can have there's a whole thing people are going to say, if you've heard other people talk, they say, don't use a tracking number in Google My Business because it's going to affect your local search rankings and the directory listing connectivity and stuff. Google My Business will actually allow you to have a few numbers now and make your top one the tracking number, make your second one your main name, address, phone number.
The local number.
Yep, your local phone number. And that's a way you can track stuff from Google My Business, because people are very surprised how much actually comes direct dialed from Google My Business and never hits your website. Like 2 years ago, I was like shocked by the number. Now I'm just, like immune to it, but it was amazing how much, like Google My Business is, like, cause it's not a social media, but it's something that I think so many people overlook as for supporting, branded searches for people who already know you, supporting referrals. So I just mentioned as an aside there, but speaking of, we can go back to Facebook. Sorry.
No, I think that that you make a really good point. So Facebook as one example of one channel that you need to track. Google My Business is another. Any place where you have specific entry points for your business, where you may be asking later down the line, oh, how did you hear about us, or who referred you, or where was your first sort of introduction to, ABC law firm or whatever the business. People's memories are imperfect and flawed, and it is more complete to get the data from the action point where someone's not self-reporting and it just comes through that phone number. So that makes a ton of sense to me. One other thing that we're seeing on Facebook is also the ability to directly book consultations. From our perspective, we work with clients who want to get right to the consultation and want the transfer, and others who say, we need you to ask these questions first. We have a lot of unqualified leads. Maybe if you're in a newer practice and you are more tolerant and less strict with the consultations that you'll have, or you charge for them, that's another way of sort of immediately, tightening that funnel. Do you have any clients who are using like the consultation and calendaring feature within Facebook? Is that useful to firms as you've seen?
We've been driving people to their method on their usually on their landing page. So if they're having a form and we're taking advantage of the form inside of Facebook to capture the initial information, the next step would then be to drive them to their website, which I know is not what the user probably wanted to do. That's why they use the form inside of Facebook. But we want to keep it inside the scheduled consultation practice that we've made standard within their website. So I don't have a good answer. We haven't actually used it. I think partly because of what you were saying, and people want to control that step and not just have anybody suddenly take their calendar.
Yeah, from what I've seen, there are not such robust options for asking questions. You can charge for it. I don't know if it integrates with LawPay, frankly. The reason that we haven't used it at Smith AI is it doesn't actually work with all the calendaring solutions. So they have a very small set, I think it's like 5, that are natively integrated into the Facebook calendaring. So that's something to keep an eye on. And if you're not already using it, you certainly could be, or as a test. to see if the quality of leads is as strong, or one hypothesis is that if people are recommending your firm, and those are probably the most qualified leads, and they're doing so on Facebook, either formally by asking for recommendations or just, anecdotally or in conversations, they're going to then hopefully click on, the link to your Facebook profile page. I was just having another conversation before this that, Google and Facebook are basically the portals into your business, where they visit online, your online page or first, and then they will call if they need to call at all before scheduling an appointment. So let's talk about paid traffic. What is working? Do you go beyond the news feed? Do you go into the marketplace and Messenger to advertise? Are they advertising also through Instagram because the platform allows both? What is most effective, and where can we just sort of cut through the noise and get right to the channels that you're seeing perform best?
Yeah. So what's working? I guess there's a couple sides to that. There's targeted, lead gen, and then there's branding. So we do both. If you, I'll just say right now, like if you do any type of advertising in like commercial, like TV advertising, and you've spent a decent chunk of money to do that, I highly recommend you spend not even $100 to reach even a bigger audience than your TV's going to reach in a target by putting the video on Facebook. So you put the video on Facebook and then put dollars behind it, super targeted, more than just, this DMA at this time with this show, but you can be really targeted. If you already have that commercial, you have that asset, you paid a lot of money for it, put it up there. We're getting like the view through, and like in 30-second commercials, right? So Facebook it has a like a views in it versus a view through, like play through, like metric. 3 seconds is their views. So don't ever use that one. Don't ever use that views metric, because it's somebody's like on their phone, and by the time they scroll from the bottom to the top slowly as they're skimming, they've like 3 second,
it's a false positive, basically.
Yeah. So use the other one. I think it's 15 seconds. And the amount of, and then they'll even show you like your average play time. But we're seeing people like watching, like 20 to 30 seconds of these commercials. And for like $100 a month or something, $150 a month, which is costing the same firm, I don't know, $100,000 that month, right? On the TV. So that's just an easy win. And it helps really increase the branding, and you can be really targeted of exactly who you want to see that. The awesome thing, if somebody watches 20 to 30 seconds of that commercial on Facebook, you then can pay more money for an ad that targets those people who watch it for so many seconds. So that's a way to take an asset you already have, utilize your branding by hitting a large reach for very cheap dollars, and the people who do interact with your ad, then you can spend the money on them to be more targeted with a message, with a call to action kind of message. So that's something we've done for a lot of personal injury firms that have a lot of, invested in a lot of stuff already. So that's one quick thing. The other thing that's working is just really, like, honestly thinking through the targeting, taking advantage of more than just demographics. First of all, definitely take advantage of the demographics, because the basic demographics are like where they live. Like we've taken over, it drives me crazy. We take over campaigns and people will not have even really set the geolocation. So they're kind of like just running Facebook everywhere, their ads just anywhere, and they only budgeted so much. So it didn't, the ad
it burns through your budget so quickly.
Yeah. The money was done in like, a week. And so you can target, but you can be smart about that. Not just say your city, maybe it's certain areas in your city where you really want to target. Then maybe there's age ranges. Like, so if it doesn't make sense to ever have somebody who's under 28 years old see your ad, then cut those out of your thing. Or if it doesn't make sense for anybody over 50 to see your ad, like you can quickly do that. So that's just basic demographics. That's like,
but is it like ever see your ad or ever hire you, or do you ever just say, you know what, we're going to really dial into those clients who we most often work with, not who are possible to work with? But I often wonder, even for Smith AI, just as a marketer myself, how much can I dial into that really narrow zone?
Yeah, so that gets into interest and behavior. Yeah.
Mhm.
So demographics is just one thing, right? So, and I recommend like narrowing your demographics because you don't want too wide of an audience because it's too much money and it's hard to track what's working. Because if you can narrow the audience down, then maybe you can change your ads. Don't forget this is like a visual medium, right? So you can change your imagery. So if you can target an ad for people, from like 20 to 35,
Mhm.
or maybe even 20 to 30, 30, whatever, like the tranches of kind of demographics from a visual perspective. You can
Mhm.
change the like who's in the picture that you're putting in there
Show
versus
them
over
someone who's
40.
of the same demographic,
Show this,
basically.
yep, make
Mhm.
make make him look like them.
Mhm.
So that's very common. You could even target male versus female that way, right? And change your imagery.
Well, so what's
So
your
that's a
tactic there then? So do you show women, women, and men, men, or do you show men, women, and women, men?
so traditionally, I'll give you what the general marketing data says from years ago, and I don't have any updates on this. It's men like to look at women, and women like to look at women. So men are always screwed, right? Because like,
Easy. Well, no, I mean, it makes your
but that
marketing.
was the traditional marketing thing. That's why women were all over TV, right?
Mhm.
Because it was like, oh, and this is like being very flippant and joking a little bit, but it was the men are like, oh, check that out, and women are like, look at those shoes,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
I don't think that probably holds up anymore, but I haven't seen any studies recently. I we don't typically tend to go sex. We tend to try to get more into the next step, which is like interest and behavior,
Okay.
right? So you can actually target somebody who's like a motorcycle enthusiast, and then you can talk about your motorcycle accidents or your motorcycle, law issues or things like that, right? And like have a picture of a motorcycle in there. Um, you can target people who let's say you're trying to do a community awareness thing, which is a great thing to do on Facebook to drive awareness and even some traffic to your page, maybe some follows, and
Mhm.
then get some additional ability to tag them. Do some if you're doing community awareness things, like the things you're already probably doing in your community, right? Like lawyers are great about supporting different like whether they're scholarships or giveaways or certain things that they're a big sponsor of. You can utilize Facebook and you can talk about that. Maybe if you're even trying to do some raising, and you can target people who are known to be big donors or known to be charitable. So that like there's things like that. So we'll target people like that for like
Mhm.
scholarship campaigns that we run for clients,
Mhm.
right? So there's a way to target somebody who is that. We've got a client that's doing the right now. Well, I think there's something else now, but they were doing like the 3M earplugs. Were in the
Oh
military.
yeah, right. We saw
Yeah,
those campaigns too. Mhm.
yeah. So the 3M earplugs, and you're able to target somebody who was in the military, right? And then we send them to a landing page, and we can ask again, what years were you in the military, and
Mhm.
then quickly, like, oh, if you're born in the military during these years, we can let them know on a nice landing page. Oh, I'm sorry, you actually don't qualify, whatever. But if they do, then we can get them scheduled on. So now we're actually cutting down the traffic of somebody dealing on the phone with somebody who isn't qualified. So we used the Facebook ad to already target a certain group. Then the
Mhm.
landing page helped winnow that down a little bit.
Okay, so that's interesting. One of the things that came up on a Zoom call last night with a group of like women in legal tech was that someone who will remain unnamed had been running Facebook ads through not your company, another company, and they never installed the Facebook pixel for her. So, wasn't tracking and able to retarget any of the traffic that was coming through, because what goes through my mind, in addition to obviously that being a gross sort of negligent way of operating a campaign, is those people who maybe weren't in that right year range for the military, maybe they are still sort of a relevant audience or could be in the future, or you'll have the opportunity to retarget them, or maybe they have family and friends who are in the military that you may want to sort of build a lookalike audience around. Can you talk a little bit about the technical, like pixel and building audiences like those that are converting?
Yeah. So two things. One is, I'm a big fan of email lists. So in addition to everything else we're talking about, always have a way to get somebody on an email list that you start building for your firm. So all of these things, if somebody is, like opting in and put them on your email list, you can do the upstanding thing and ask, give them a checkbox to check to be on your email list. But in America, we're still not required to do that. So you can take your choice. But the reason I say that is because you can also upload over time, you can upload your email list to Facebook and build lookalike audiences there too. So that's why I was mentioning that important thing.
Yeah, and if you use MailChimp, actually, you can connect it, I think, immediately.
It's just right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a few other vendors do it. Yep. So the thing about audiences. So one thing I mentioned, I was talking about, this area, this demographic of, age or type and these behaviors, you can actually save that as one audience. So you want to build different audiences and then have different ads to those audiences. So that's an audience. The other type of audience is, well, who are people that look like this type of person? And when I say person, it's not somebody that you've kind of like got a scalpel out and narrowed down and built your own audience, like the custom audience. It's, here's a group of people. Hey, Facebook, figure out what you think similar to them and go market to that. And then you can say within this lookalike audience, then, but only within this region or this area. So you can still do some demographics within a lookalike. But and the reason for a lookalike is when I talked about doing those branded ads, right? So let's say you have a video, or you just want to do your own video. Like, it doesn't have to be because you had a commercial. You do a video. You just do some, maybe whatever, if you did a billboard or a print ad, take that same ad and just spend some simple money reaching a wide group of people. And then the people who engage with that ad, maybe go to your Facebook page or click on something. Then Facebook kind of says, oh, they engage with you, however you define the engagement. There's different ways to engage. So you can say they engage with you. Then you can say all the people who engage with me from, January through March, build a audience that's very similar. That's like the lookalike audience. Right?
Everyone who signed up for my email list, or everyone who clicked to book a consultation, or whatever.
Yes, you could do it on your website if you put your pixel on your website, or you could just do it with how they engage within the Facebook ad platform, right? Or in your page too. You could say anybody who likes my page, but lookalike audience for. So
they watch one of those videos, or
you can do a whole bunch of, and again, you can think about that lookalike audience and say, well, what would be a really good thing to send them? If it's a lookalike audience that looks just like my big email list, then maybe that's, higher up in the funnel type of brand ad, or just, here's a helpful guide or checklist for things that are important to people who are on your email list. Right. So it's not like, hey, schedule a consultation to that group. Right. But for people, so if lookalike audiences tend to be slightly higher in the funnel, and then you can use that behavior to work them down. So if they watch your ad, great, let's move them down a level. If they downloaded your guide or your checklist, let's move them down a level. And the next thing we need to say is, hey, I'm here to help. Here's how you get a hold of me, whether it's phone, consultation, whatever. So work them down to, don't lead with, hi, we're here to help, book a consultation. Right.
Build a rapport first.
Yeah, I mean, it's still social media. You wouldn't walk into a networking event. That's what I always try to say. Think of Facebook as just a big networking event. It's also one of the reasons I say, don't just take your blog content and like throw it on Facebook and say, I checked the social media box, because you wouldn't walk in a networking event, with your PDF in hand and say, hey, look at my new blog. Hey, look at my new blog. Hey, look at my new blog. Right? Like it's engage first, like talk about the weather, talk about what they're interested in. So you could, if you're doing something in your town and sports are really big, well, not right now, right? But if sports are big about something, then, you can run an ad kind of talking about how, you supported this charity associated with the sports team or something. That's kind of like getting a little bit of an interest in something that they care about, and work your way down, right? That's similar to starting out by saying, hey, how'd the Reds do yesterday in a networking event?
Participate, don't just self-promote, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that we see. Also, you'll be most just top of mind when you participate in those conversations. So I wanted to ask you also, when people are, making recommendations, and obviously businesses get recommended all the time. When you're doing your targeting, are you ever also targeting to your network, to your referral sources, to, if I'm a, personal injury attorney, am I building content and even paying for ads to reach the chiropractors who are in my network, or medical providers, or anyone who I'm building or have built relationships with? How do you approach that to sort of stay top of mind with that audience outside of maybe a Facebook group?
Yeah, so that would be to me like the organic side of things.
Mhm.
You could do paid ads. I just think you can get so much more by being real. Just like, the thing is, this does take effort, right? So it takes actually trying to build a relationship to ask for a referral, just like it should, to be
Mhm.
honest, right? It shouldn't be, hey, you saw my ad, now send traffic to me. Send your dear close guarded clients to me because you saw a Facebook ad, right? You still need to kind of build that relationship. Now
Mhm.
you can get some brand awareness and start the conversation by, did they download my, like if there's a really good checklist type thing that would be perfect for a certain audience, they said like a chiropractor, like maybe, marriage counselors or like there's a bunch of areas where you could provide something. Maybe
Mhm.
you could run an ad about that, and then know that, hey, these, the ad is really targeted more to like my page, and then you can engage people that way.
Right.
But I'm big on organic, and there's kind of two big ways to do it. One is get involved in groups,
Mhm.
and not one of the faults I see a lot of us, and me included, because Maddie, we're in a bunch of these groups, is we tend to hang out with people who are like us, not
Right.
who are like my
Take it
clients
to the
or
choir.
like my referral partners, right? So in Facebook, if still do that, because you're there for that reason too, but
Mhm.
look for people that are like your referral partners, or and maybe not like your clients. I think this works really well for the referral partners. You look for people who are like your referral partners, and spend some time in their groups. Spend
Mhm.
some time, engage. I think LinkedIn's a great place for this in terms of like looking for those people and engaging one-on-one, and just saying, hey, wanted to connect. Here's what I like. Here's what I like to do. Here's what I like to do to help. Building that kind of structure and foundation allows you to kind of build the credibility so that somebody thinks of you when they have that client that fits, that that, just like you would build a referral in a face-to-face setting. I haven't for clients built like checklists and targeted referral partners. Like we've been very organic about it. And when I say we've been organic, we've just coached and consulted with our clients and said, this is what we think you need to be doing.
Right.
The other side of it is the other thing that works really well is be an interviewer. So just like like, so Maddie, brings me on here. There's some people that are, possibly, I don't know, like, it looks like people are law firms. I work with law firms. She's like, hey, let me interview you in front of this group. I love it. So I'm like, Maddie just elevated in my mind, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna, think of like chat, and I'm gonna say, oh, you should use, like Maddie's company, because
Right. We stay
she
present
invited
with
me.
each other. Mhm.
She invited me to interview and put me in front of a group of people that I thought, would be valuable, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I also love to get in front of people and talk all day, so that helps. But
You and
the
I both like to talk about this stuff anyway.
so the but we've had a lot of clients who are very successful at just interviewing people around town
Mhm.
about all kinds of things, and not just about something that's specific to legal, but just about the community. So if you open your bounds outside of like legal, then people start to get to know you as a person in the town who does legal, and then maybe you can kind of slowly work into like this type of law.
Mhm.
But hey, it's not a bad thing to have a referral come to you and say, hey, do you help with these type of people? And no, if I know somebody who does, and now you got benefit for sending a referral, right?
There's only one
And
way to learn, and that builds your network too.
yep. So we've I don't know if I told you this, Maddie. Like it was like the best advice I ever got from a client
Mhm.
was, he's like, if you do these interviews, and you can just do Facebook Lives, right? You just Facebook Lives, record them and save them and put them up
Yep.
there, and they're just like once a week, once every other week, just have somebody from the community. But he had the weatherman on. He
Mhm.
interviewed the weatherman on Facebook Live, and like, you don't think about it, but who in your town probably has the most followers on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram? Everybody follows the weatherman, right? They want to
Oh
know what's going on in the weather. And like,
yeah.
if there's ever a storm or some crazy thing, then everybody goes and starts following the weatherman, so they just keep growing. So, but nobody
Yeah,
ever
if you're in
interviews the
personal
weatherman.
injury, I mean, that could actually be potentially relevant to you.
Yeah, but nobody ever interviews them,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So,
Totally. See the
so you
opportunity.
interview the weatherman. The weatherman's so excited, or the weather, right? And they're so excited, and they like tweet out or send out on their Facebook, I'm so excited, I got interviewed by like Christopher Good here,
Mhm.
on his Facebook Live show.
Right.
If you ever
You
need
will
you
share
ever
with
need
their
some legal ever need
network.
legal help, you should go check him out. Like, you didn't ask for that, they just are so excited. Interview restaurant owners,
Mhm.
interview teachers or sport coaches of like a team that, like does well in high school, whatever, because everybody's always around the high school. You're hitting a whole bunch of parents that way. People share that stuff, and now you're building organic credibility. So if you build some organic credibility on Facebook by just doing, like I said, interviews with people around town, then right now, when you do an organic post that's about, hey, I have this checklist, or I have this new blog post or whatever, that gets a significantly more amount of visibility than when all you were doing ever was just posting that.
You're training people to pay attention to you as someone who provides interesting content. And then when you have something promotional, then they're still paying attention to you. Yeah. That's really interesting, just in terms of building trust around you not just having self-promotional content. But I think there's also, to get back to COVID for a moment, where we are right now, there is just minimal bandwidth, right? So when people are, going online, they're looking for something light and entertaining, something, maybe to take their mind off of things. It's not always like, they're hunting for, an attorney. How do you capture, some of that attention, but in a professional way? I've been seeing a lot of questions around, or actually a lot of advice from others who advise attorneys to say, oh, be really real and share your personal stories and be like anybody else, just a human, and you happen to also have a law firm and people are familiar with you. To what extent do you advise your clients to be that informal? Is there value in that? I mean, we think about the opportunity cost of time. Is that something that you advise people to spend their time doing? And if yes, or no, why?
Yeah, so I think right now there's a whole bunch of people kind of like bring their head up. I mean, so I think I saw somebody was in criminal and DUI defense, right? So that's one of the areas that's been just decimated in terms of traffic and lead flow and in our statistics. So I mean, hopefully, Stephen, you're not hitting it hard as some of our clients, but it's tough, right? Yeah,
it's terrible,
right? And so people want like, hey, what do I do right now to like get the phones ringing? Well, if people aren't, I mean, was it like Miami, Florida or something, said they had like 7 straight days of like no murders or something like that, or so, like it was like something where it's like the first time ever, like there's literally crime is significantly down.
And we're all walking into banks with masks on our faces, but
yeah, right. So that is really funny. I will use that in the future. Thank you. So yeah, there's nothing there. So I'm telling people like use this time now to build a foundation that you can leverage later. So if you have some time, spend time building these networks, spend time maybe, like, hey, can I pull you on to talk about, this type of, like I said, do a Facebook Live interview or something like that. And yes, people hire people. I'm a big believer that people don't care about your Facebook law firm page. They care about your Facebook profile. People don't care about your attorney, your law firm website. They care about your attorney profile page. So your homepage is always the most traffic, most visited thing, because that's where everybody sends people. The second most visited page on every law firm website, if it's done right, is your attorney profile. People hire people. That's what they want to know. LinkedIn company pages are crap, right? Everybody connects to LinkedIn profiles.
So I think one of the questions also so LinkedIn and Facebook, we see one as like business, and obviously there are people on Facebook who run businesses. So if you're a B2B attorney, right, if you're doing trademark, employment, like any sort of GC or IP, whatever the case may be, contracts, which are definitely being reviewed right now for any force majeure and things like that. How do you reach businesses on Facebook sort of systematically? Because I think that's one of the areas where I was told a couple years ago by someone who is pretty high up in the Facebook ads program that, the B2B data that is pulled into the business data, assigning and even the emails alone, right? If you have an email list of business emails, they may actually not match up to their Facebook email. So there may be a lot of gaps and missing data there. How do the B2B attorneys reach their target audience on Facebook outside of LinkedIn?
Yeah, so good question. I agree that it's people hire people still.
Mhm.
So if you lead with here, here's who I am as a person, here's what I do in the community, here's what, and oh, by the way, I happen to be a lawyer. You're going to pick up people, right? So if you coach Little League, guess what? There's a bunch of other business owners or executives who make decisions who probably coach Little League, right? And there's, I'm also a big believer that, pick one platform and start with it. Don't try to be everywhere. Like, don't look at people like Mark, me and Maddie and stuff and say, oh, they're everywhere. I need to be everywhere. It's like, yes, I spend way too much time there, but I also have some people who probably help me do that. Right. So like, oh, I really focus on this, but then when I post stuff, some people take that and they'll put it in Twitter or they'll put it in other places. Right. So,
What's a good
pick one
resource to
platform.
find people to do that, Mark, by the way?
Sorry.
How do you find people to, like, so you're doing that and that's rolled into your services. So let's say that someone is like really, lower budgets right now. They've reduced their budgets to accommodate maybe lower business flow. If you want to keep your social media going, but like you're homeschooling your kids and you're taking care of an elderly parent, like how do you possibly have time to get work done and do Facebook? Like, are there any really like sort of outsourced sideline resources? You go to
Hmm.
Upwork. Like if you were going to advise
Yeah.
a client and you're saying, look, if you have this much money, you should be spending this with GNGF for your Google ads. And like, I'm going to give you this other resource to do something with your Facebook. I mean, what would you recommend?
Right. So again, I think it's pick one that you're going to be heavily engaging on.
Okay.
Right. And start there. Like you can get to the point where you're kind of like, you got some stuff feeling good. You can get in and out of Facebook pretty well, or whatever. Maybe start LinkedIn, and then you can pick up another one. But, in terms of engagement, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can, and then your actual like posts like that you kind of are planning out and like saying, okay, I want this post to be about my firm. I want this post to be about this community thing.
Mm-hmm.
We also plan those out for the month and then review those each week. I mean, I don't know if you guys do something similar, right? So like you
Yeah.
think of your editorial calendar, and then that's where if I'm building the editorial calendar and looking through that with my, and I have a VA, right? So I didn't even like, I could hire, I could bring somebody full-time in staff as a marketer to help me with that. But I'm like, I don't need that. I just need this kind of stuff about Mark and GNGF. And so I just used a VA, and they're actually in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And you
but
never know, right? So
it
what?
took time to get there, but like, it's still on me to do some of that upfront planning, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're on execution. And then if somebody's like, starts engaging pretty heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't see it, they'll kind of let me know.
Right.
But
Okay. Yeah,
I
that's
spent a lot of
actually
time
a
in
really
one
good rule
platform.
to have, that they don't, just put out all your fires because maybe, like, not that they're fires, but let's say that someone sort of becomes a troll or something like that, you're alerted. You're not totally hands off, and you're also not just throwing them into the deep end. There's some training that's required for anyone
Mhm.
who is representing your firm, right?
Yeah.
So really quickly, we did promise to talk about, Facebook grants. Obviously, Google is also doing grants, but the parameters around them are not always as appealing as someone may hope. So I know with Google, for example, that it's on future ad spend, and it has a limit in when it can be used, and you have to have a history of paying Google for ads. Can you talk a little bit about Facebook and what they're doing with their ads? Are you having any clients who are using them? Are they eligible?
So, so that there's a page, and I wish I might even be able to find
I'll
it
pull
before
it
we're
up.
done.
Mhm.
So there's a page that you can go and you can put in your I think zip code, and then, or it's zip code, or maybe it's just a drop down now. I think it's actually limited down to a drop down, and you look, once you're in, say you're in the US, it'll say here are the cities where you qualify.
Like 10
And I don't know
cities
if,
or something, right?
it's not much.
I saw that
We
Buffalo's not on there and I immediately blew it off.
so we and it's based on I think something about like where Facebook ad offices are or something. I don't know if there's a range, but because I don't think I tried to map it. I don't think it's like mapped to like hard hit cities or anything weird, because it's like
No, because Atlanta's on
middle
there.
nowhere Tennessee or something like that. Yeah.
It seemed
But
quite random.
so our account managers are reaching out to clients and saying, hey, if we've got, I think there was 2 cities where we had 3 clients, and so they're reaching out to them and saying, hey, do you want us to try this? But because it was like a application early on, and then they switched it to this like list of cities.
Mm-hmm.
So and that quickly reduced the ability to kind of like go after it, right? So we've only got so many clients in those cities. So if you're not in one of those cities, I think Chicago is one, by the way.
I think Chicago is, but Buffalo is not. I remember seeing
Yeah,
that being sort of
because I think I saw, was it Steven that was in Chicago? Somebody was in Chicago in here.
yeah,
I
Stevens
used to
in
live in
Chicago.
Chicago, so it's near and dear to my heart. I love Chicago.
All right, so I just posted the link in the chat.
So I don't have enough experience to say we did this for a client in it, Maddie. Unfortunately, I think it's still too new. But as soon as I do, I'll let you know.
So are there any sort of ethical considerations, just on Facebook, and then we'll start wrapping up, where maybe it's relevant to COVID, or maybe it's just relevant generally around, what you can do, or what the bar associations are, because obviously it differs by state in many cases, but what the general provisions are for considering Facebook compared to other channels or your website and testimonials and all of those things that go into building good presence on social.
So ethics first on that. So it's, of course, first disclaimer, right? It depends on your state. So check with your state bar. But in general, what I tell people is, if you are on the organic side and engaging as a person and not as a law firm, and not, out there just like broadcasting, all your success, and this can, like positioning yourself as like, look at this case I won, look at that case I won, and end up, you cross into like maybe details of stuff. If you're just out there as a person and engaging as, yes, I happen to be a law firm owner in our community, and here's what I do in the community, and here's who I am as a person, there's no ethical issues, right? Because there's nothing to really go over. It's when you start advertising. When you advertise, then depending on your state, it essentially it follows the advertising rules, right? So depending on your state, most states it's kind of following into like the ad rules as they treat it kind of like a website, like your Facebook page, like a website. So if you're advertising to your Facebook page, if your state requires you to keep copies of your ad, then I always recommend, screenshot when you ran an ad and have it, off the side. I don't think many bars require you to send ads in anymore. But because that used to be a thing.
Do, or revisions have to be approved, and that's actually
Yeah.
a revenue source for them.
Yeah, it's Texas still requires, approvals of websites all the time, and they cash those checks. But yeah, and but I don't know. I know a lot of bar people. I think they're not overly funded either, so like they probably need those checks.
Right. It's just what counts as a revision.
Right. It's a blog post. Is that a revision? So, but yeah, the ads follow the ad rules. So, you can't, the big things, right? So this is, there are rules, there are specific professional ethics rules out there. And I speak on them all the time because that's, I have to do that at bar associations. But big picture, my hand wave is, these are marketing advertising rules. And unless you misrepresent something to a underserved population, to a population that's at risk, the most you're going to get is hey, don't do it that way next time. Right? If you misrepresent, and that actually, okay, taking advantage of somebody who is, doesn't understand something, or maybe, get more money, like that's, and most people aren't going to do that, right? People who are going to do that don't care what I'm saying right now anyways. So like the ethics rules, if you, mess in the trust fund and that kind of stuff, that's where, like you mess with people's money and cost of money, that's when you get, that marketing rules, yes, like follow them. But a lot of times it's just, hey, don't, like advertise that you do something that you don't. Right? That's like the rules are pretty basic. Like when I put them up there, it's always like, okay, this is obvious, but don't pay for don't pay for reviews. Really, it's like, why do pay for reviews? Like, well, actually, some people will give like a gift card in order for review, and that's actually a monetary exchange. And like, there's a lot of marketing blogs that'll say do that, so don't do that. But for the most part, Facebook ad rules are pretty straightforward. And I always say, like, on the organic side, don't be scared of social media, just be yourself, and there's no ethics issues at all.
Yeah, no, that's really great advice, and all your advice is great, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us today. I also wanted to just emphasize that obviously both of our companies are fully operational right now and, operating remotely. I'm really so grateful that Smith AI was a remote first company. All of our receptionists and our chat agents and people who are answering Facebook messages are working safely from home. They always have. So that has positioned us really well to just not have to worry about our internal operations and to be on the front lines for firms who are getting traffic, and who are actually engaging with leads, that we're doing that on their behalf on Facebook. What we know that's really important is that these text-based channels, obviously in addition to phone, it's really important to be responsive, but I think underlying this conversation around Facebook is just the importance of understanding responsiveness is not just a function of speed, but also of content and channel. And I talk about this really often, like, you can be very responsive on phone, but if someone is trying hard to text or send a Facebook message or chat on your website or reach you, it's important that you understand that's their experience, and maybe that's the only channel that they're comfortable or able to silently message you, because they could be, especially now in these times, at home with someone who they don't want to hear about, contacting a law firm. It could be a private sensitive matter that the kids or parents or spouse should not overhear, or they're not comfortable with that. So that is something that I think is really an important factor here as we see things shift and the screen time increase and proximity shrink. It's really important that we offer those channels that someone who knows to call or has the ability to call, and is comfortable calling and speaking rather than sort of typing, which a lot of people will divulge more information, which then allows you to better qualify them. That's really where we see the trend going. So if you're running these campaigns, it is essential that you tie up the end of that funnel with a fast response and an informed response, so that if Mark is sending for his clients traffic to a website to increase conversions, that you have people who can answer the questions, who have the ability to screen leads before a consult is scheduled, so that when you are giving up time with your family or time spent on other work, or just run ragged because your days are so long, that if you have a consultation, it's a meaningful, valuable use of your time. That's really what we're focused on right now. So if we can be of service, and you're not an existing client, then we do have the offer Smith COVID-19, which will give you, in addition to our 20 call, 20 chat free trial, another 20 calls and 20 chats free with your first month. We're doing free CRM integrations with every paid plan now. We didn't used to, and that's something that we've added, in addition to obviously the 24/7 chatbot. Now, if you're a current client, because I know some of you are, we have the $25 a month regular account credit, and we also have a $200 Amazon gift card in gratitude for any referrals that you send. They'll also obviously be able to take advantage of that offer. So, now is the time to reach out to people who may need help and not know where to find it. You can contact me directly. You can set up a free consultation through our website. You can just go on Calendly and direct people there and tell them that you sent them, and they can mention that offer, and they can also mention your name so you get credit for it too. So Mark, I think that you wanted to, share how to get access to your book. Obviously you put it in chat, what's in there, and how can they get a free copy?
Okay. It's our book. It's almost like I'm grabbing off the virtual bookshelf back here.
I thought you were doing something like that.
So yeah, no, it's 300 pages of awesome information, full color, so a lot of pretty pictures. But yeah, no, we kind of start from general marketing strategy, and then get down to specific tactics between protect your referrals and growing leads, tracking, and it tends to be strategy and tactics, and then the specific how-tos. We either have some guides that we link to, because strangely enough, Facebook changes their way to do things every once in a while, or Google does. So, but yeah, we bought 300 books and are giving them away during the COVID crisis to anybody that thinks they can help and has a little time to get through it. So happy to send that your way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We do have a couple minutes for questions if you have them. Otherwise, we will give you a couple minutes back in your day. Go stretch, take a walk, stretch your legs, stand up, do whatever keeps you healthy right now. And I know I'm going to go get a breath of fresh air because I've been trapped inside all day. And then I'm going to go work on painting cabinets at my house. So, Mark, thank you for joining us.
Good seeing you. Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Take care.